Hafa everyone. Welcome to the Guam Congress building. This is the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture. It's now called to order. Today's Thursday, July 25th, 2024, and the time is about 4:07 p.m. I'm Therese Terlaje. I'm the chairperson of the Committee on Health, and I'm joined today by Senator Will Parkinson and Senator Roy Quinata. In compliance with the Open Government Law, notice for this public hearing was published in the Guam Daily Post and posted to the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal on Wednesday, July 17 and Tuesday, July 23, 2024. Notice was also sent by email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on July 17 and July 23rd, and this hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. I ask that if you're going to testify that you please identify yourself before speaking so that we're going to transcribe and we all attribute those comments to you. We have one agenda item for this 4 p.m. hearing. It is Bill number 86-37 COR, sponsored by Senator William A. Parkinson. It is an act to amend Section 3222 of Article 2, Chapter 3, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, and to add a new Chapter 37 to Title 7 Guam Code Annotated relative to allowing individuals to change the legal sex designation on their birth certificates. We will now invite the sponsor of the bill. The bill is sponsored by William A. Parkinson and Roy A.B. Quinata. We'll now allow the primary sponsor, Senator Parkinson, to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Buenas and Hafa Day. I'm honored to stand before you today to introduce and advocate for Bill 86-37 COR, a measure that seeks to amend our laws to allow transgender individuals to change the sex designation on their birth certificates without the requirement of undergoing sex reassignment surgery. This legislation is not just a matter of policy, but a deeply personal and human rights issue. This was brought to my attention by a heartfelt letter from a constituent, Geraldine Harry, on behalf of her nephew, Sunny Jai. Sunny Jai, born Trudy Solis, is a 22-year-old trans male who has faced severe depression and suicidal tendencies due to the immense challenges of living in a society that does not fully recognize his true identity. Geraldine writes, Sunny J has been severely depressed and suicidal for quite a while now. He had multiple attempts at suicide and nearly succeeded once. The fact he dresses as a guy and still having to be addressed as a female is one of his biggest challenges. This is the reality for many transgender individuals on our island who endure their daily struggles and profound mental health challenges simply because their legal documents do not align with their gender identity. Currently, Guam law mandates that individuals must undergo extensive and invasive sex reassignment surgery to change the sex on their birth certificates. This requirement is not only medically unnecessary, but also impractical, as these surgeries are not performed on Guam and are not covered by insurance, making them prohibitively expensive. As Geraldine pointed out, unlike some places in the United States, Guam requires one to have full reassignment surgery, and Guam is not equipped for that procedure. And another huge challenge is the cost to have the procedures done. Bill 86-37 COR, co-sponsored by Senator Roy A.B. Quinata, proposes to eliminate the surgery requirement and allow transgender individuals to change their legal sex designation through a court order and a testimony from a licensed therapist, psychologist, or counselor. This bill would provide a much-needed legal pathway for our trans community to gain the recognition they deserve without the burdensome and invasive prerequisites currently in place. In the words of the constituent letter, these transgender people know early in their lives what they identify as and should be respected as their human right. Please give them the freedom to be who they truly feel they are within themselves. This plea echoes the sentiments of many in our community who believe in the dignity and respect of all individuals, regardless of their gender identity. March 31st, the day this bill was introduced, coincided with International Transgender Day of Visibility, a day dedicated to celebrating transgender people and raising awareness of the discrimination they face. It is fitting that we move forward with this legislation in the spirit of visibility, acceptance, and equality. In 2015, the Guam legislature took a significant step by unanimously passing Bill 102-33, which prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation, identity, or expression in employment. Bill 86-37 COR continues this legacy by addressing a critical gap in our legal system and ensuring that all individuals can live authentically without fear. The need for this bill is further supported by a wealth of scientific research and sociological evidence. Studies consistently show that having accurate identification documents that reflect one's gender identity significantly improves the mental health and well-being of transgender individuals. According to the study published in the Journal of Lancet Psychiatry, transgender people who have their gender identity legally recognized experience lower rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation compared to those who do not have such recognition. The study underscores the importance of reducing the discrepancy between one's lived experience and legal documentation. Furthermore, the American Psychological Association has long advocated for policies that support the ability of transgender individuals to amend their identification documents without unnecessary medical interventions. The APA states that such policies are essential for reducing stigma and discrimination and for promoting the health and well-being of transgender people. From a legal standpoint, the requirement for surgery to amend one's birth certificate has been challenged in various jurisdictions for violating constitutional rights. In particular, it has been argued that such requirements infringe on the rights to the privacy, equal protection, and due process of the individual. For example, in the case of Norsworthy versus Beard, 2015, the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of California ruled that denying a transgender woman's surgery constituted cruel and unusual punishment, violating her Eighth Amendment rights. While this case was specific to a prisoner's rights, it highlights the broader legal principle that access to gender-affirming care and recognition is a fundamental right. Additionally, the International Human Rights Standard recognized the right of individuals to have their gender identity legally recognized without coercive requirements. The Yogyakarta Principles, which are a set of principles on the application of international human rights laws in relation to sexual orientation and gender identity, state that everyone has the right to recognition before the law and have their identity documents reflect their self-defined gender identity. Principle 3 of the Yogyakarta Principles specifically calls for the elimination of any requirements for legal recognition that are abusive or unnecessary, such as mandatory surgical procedures. Implementing Bill 86-37 also makes practical sense. It alleviates the administrative burden and unnecessary healthcare costs associating with enforcing surgery requirements. It aligns Guam with progressive jurisdictions that have already modernized their laws to allow for gender marker changes on identity documents based on self-identification. States such as California, New York, and Oregon have enacted similar measures, providing a legal precedent and framework for Guam to follow. Moreover, allowing individuals to change their sex designation on their birth certificate without requiring surgery promotes public health by reducing barriers to accessing health care. Transgender individuals often face discrimination and misunderstanding in healthcare settings. Having identification that reflects their gender identity can improve interactions with healthcare providers, leading to better health outcomes and increased trust in medical systems. The social and economic benefits of this legislation cannot be overlooked. Transgender individuals who have accurate identification documents are more likely to secure employment, housing, and access to public services without discrimination. According to a report by the National Center for Transgender Equality, transgender people with accurate IDs experience fewer instances of harassment and violence and report a higher quality of life. As we deliberate on this bill, let's remember the stories of individuals like Sunny Jai, whose lives are profoundly impacted by the laws we enact. Let us stand with our transgender community and affirm their right to live with dignity, free of unnecessary barriers and discrimination. I urge my colleagues to support Bill 86-37 COR, and let us pass this legislation and take a definitive stand for equality, compassion, and human rights in our beloved island community. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and I look forward to a robust discussion on this topic. With that, I yield the rest of my time, Madam Speaker.
Cesar Masi, for the record, the committee invited and requested feedback from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, including their Vital Statistics Division, the Department of Revenue and Taxation, the Judiciary of Guam. We are still pending a legal review, and we have requested a fiscal note, and according to BBMR, the intent of the bill is administrative in nature and poses no fiscal impact upon any fund of the government of Guam. All right, so now we will receive testimony. I have about 4 people signed up. You're all invited to the table. Anyone who wants to testify on this bill verbally. Tewid, Maris Beng, Dante Carino. If anyone else is sick, Garrett, Jarrett. And anyone else is welcome as well to testify. Okay, so page 1, I've got Garrett Zopfi. Would you like to begin? Just please, everyone, state your name for the record. Press that button down there. You're going to get a red light. That means you're on. Put it close to you so it's very clear on the recording, if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Garrett Zopfi. I would not like to go first.
Okay. Anyone want to go first? Volunteers. Please state your name for the record.
Afade, good afternoon. My name is Dante Carino. I am a recent high school graduate, and I stand before you today to share my story and to emphasize the importance of passing Bill 86-37 for the transgender community of Guam. In being here, I do actually pose a risk to my safety and well-being, but this is a risk that I am willing to take to advocate for my transgender familia in any way I can. Gender dysphoria is a medical condition that describes the cognitive dissonance between one's assigned sex at birth and their perceived gender identity in society. I first came out to my brother as transgender in December 2018, and he was the only person who actively supported me and tried to get me help at the time. Unfortunately, the rest of my family did not receive these news well, especially my parents. My mom had come to find out I was transgender after my doctor had formally diagnosed me with gender dysphoria and major depressive disorder and referred me to a clinical psychologist for counseling. I'll never forget my mother's words when she told me that because of who I am, because I am transgender, I was tearing our family apart. She didn't accept me, and she still doesn't accept me as her son, and at times has tried to send me to conversion therapy to change my mind. She actually doesn't know that I'm at this hearing right now, but it's fine. It was all this rejection and the disdain and backlash I got from my family that made me attempt on my own life in 2019. But luckily, my attempt failed. Had my attempt not failed, I would have been reduced to a mere suicide statistic. I have fought hard over the past 5 years to live unapologetically as myself. With that, I made sure to work in the Guam Summer Youth Employment Program under the alternate public defender in 2022 and under Senator Roy Quinata in 2023. With those earnings that I've gotten from the program, they were going to be used to jumpstart my legal and medical transition once I turned 18, which I turned 18 last year in September. This was about $2,200 in savings for just the legal and processing fees alone. My fee for my attorney was about $1,300. And I had to do this entire process on my own as I had no help from my family. I had to hide a lot of this information from them. After school, in my senior year, I would walk to the attorney's office down here in Agania to work on the process of changing my name and changing my legal documents. In December 11th, 2023, my name was legally changed to Dante Carino, and I had my court hearing over the phone, which I had to attend at school so that my parents wouldn't know. And that was during my lunchtime. The next week, after my documents were processed and I got my court order back, I went to the Office of Vital Statistics to change my birth certificate. And I remember asking them if it was possible to change my sex designation alongside with my name. But I was told that I would need the surgeon certification to undergo full sex reassignment surgery to do so. The average price of sex reassignment surgery ranges from $20,000 to $35,000. And as mentioned before, there are no surgeons on Guam available to perform such surgeries. This rule is antithetical to the federal U.S. law, which allows transgender individuals to choose their sex designation on their passports without any need for legal documentation, which was enacted in June 2021. My passport actually had the designation of M, or male, on it since 2022, a whole year before I was able to actually start the process of changing my name. And the cost of updating your passport itself is a lot cheaper than the cost of surgery, usually under $200. So why should we have to work up and save up to $35,000 just to change the sex designation on your birth certificate? I believe when I had to go to the Office of Vital Statistics just to get the paper changed, I had to pay a processing fee of $15. As an incoming college freshman, my yearly tuition is $24,000, and I'm already struggling to pay that amount, let alone paying for, like mentioned before, an invasive surgery that takes years of recovery and rehabilitation afterwards. Not to mention the legal confusion that conflicting sex designations on passports and local forms of identification can cause. I want to let this body know today that during my court hearing on December 11th, it was the first time in my life that I no longer felt suicidal, that my life had a purpose, and that I could live to grow old one day. It's far too common that transgender youth like myself are unable to see themselves live to adulthood because of the backlash in the community is overwhelming. 41% of LGBTQ youth report suicidality, and about half of that statistic is reported by transgender youth. I am a suicide survivor, and had I not had access to gender-affirming counseling, support from my brother, my friends, my mentors, and the people sitting here today, I would have not held out on my promise that I would be able to transition and to live my life the way that I want to. I would not be here right now to share my story because my story would have ended in 2019. At the end of the day, I'm a young man who has dreams and aspirations just like anyone else. I'm a musician, I'm an artist, and my dream is to, after college, come back to Guam and serve our island as a teacher in our public school system. This island has been my home for the past 18 years, and the respect I hold for the community that raised me is immense. Now I hope that through the passage of Bill 86-37, the community will respect the identity of our transgender manhobin, just like myself, to our transgender manamku. Sizus maasi.
Sizus Masi, Mr. Carino. And all right, any other volunteers to go next? Tawit Maresbang.
Hafade and buenas, Speaker Terlaje, Senator Parkinson, and Senator Quinata. Thank you for introducing this bill. We definitely appreciate. I'll just make it a brief because we have a good amount of people here. Want to give them opportunity to speak, but I just have a couple things today. One is our transgender people are humans, and they are fellow brothers and sisters. We are talking about a fundamental human right in alleviating major traumatic concerns that our fellow brothers and sisters have to go through. As you can tell from the numerous stories, it's not easy being a transgender person. So I believe that this bill is going to do some very important things in preventing suffering and possible suicide. These are fundamental things that should be not questioned, shouldn't be questioned. As a retired military veteran of 20 years, I served this country for 20 years so that our country can live a free country, right? Our country is about freedom, living freely, making the choices we have to make for ourselves that will take care of what we need. And so I feel like if we want this country to be a free country, we need to ensure that our fellow transgender brothers and sisters are living freely. And so I totally support this bill, 8637. We don't need another of our brothers and sisters having to live and suffer. It's needless, it's unnecessary, and it's 2024. This shouldn't even be a thing. We need to be doing all that we can to be supporting our fellow brothers and sisters. That is all I had to say. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sizus Masi, Mr. Marisbang. Anyone else who would like to go next? Please identify yourself.
Hafade, Speaker Therese. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Parkinson and Senator Quinata. My name is Jarrett Sanchez. I am the president of Equality Guam, a nonprofit organization geared towards fighting for our community here on the island of Guam. This bill, 86-37, is something that I believe would progress our island's youth, educate our island's manamku, and our island's allies and population to allow our transgender familia to live authentically on the island is to progress Guam. Statistically, we've had so many losses in the transgender community, but if you look into these losses, the gender assignment is still based on the gender that they do not represent as. A part of living authentically, having their birthright, their birth certificates changed would not only lessen the mental health illnesses here on Guam, but would actually progress our island to show the rest of the world that we are a welcoming, inviting island. We love to represent our Hafaday spirit, and we love to thrive on Guam being a welcoming island. But in all honesty, we haven't been as welcoming to our LGBT community as we should be. So progressing this bill would allow for the whole world to see that Guam is a very family-oriented place. We accept everyone, we love everyone. On the topic of medical necessity or medical requirements, our island's medical facilities simply aren't ready to provide the requirements for surgical intervention for transgender youth. And the question that I'm asking is, why must we have our siblings here on island fly to other countries to achieve this surgical assignment? Why must we make it continuously harder for our transgender youth and our transgender family to live authentically? Passing this bill would make it one step easier for us to be acknowledged within the community. I sit here and I represent a community that has always been misrepresented, has always been underserved, and I do hope that in good faith that we pass this bill to fight for basic human rights for a community that has been forever underserved, and continuously fight for them to obtain the rights that we all should have as Americans. Thank you.
Sizus Masi, Jared Sanchez. And now Garrett, is that? I don't have any of the other names. If there's anyone else who'd like to testify, make sure, please, that you sign in before you leave, but please proceed. If anyone would like to go next, just identify yourself. Thank you.
Hafaday. My name is Christian Camacho. I am the Vice President for Equality Guam. I am also an educator within GDOE, as well as a born and raised resident of Santa Rita. In the 1980s, my Auntie Connie, a trans woman, left this island, her home, for a better life. One where she could move freely through the world without being judged, ridiculed, beaten, and in some cases murdered. At the time, she did not feel that she could thrive in our island community because of its prejudice. This decision to leave was not one that was made easily, and was one that would be felt by the people in my family for the foreseeable future. See, after she left, our family lost contact with her. When my mother and my auntie went looking for her, they had found that she had passed away so far from her home and a family that loved her. I pray that she wasn't alone at the end, because so many in our community often find themselves in those lonely places. Because I grew up knowing that she had left the island due to hatred and violence for being who she was, I was afraid of who I was, a gay man. I was afraid of who I was, and for many years, I hid that from the people who mattered most to me. My Auntie Connie and I come from the same community, but her struggle and the struggle of my trans brothers and sisters is one and the same. If this bill is enacted, not only will it show the world and our community that Guam is a safe place for all walks of life to experience our Hafaday spirit, it will also allow people like my Auntie Connie to live their lives fully, knowing that their island, their community, and their government support who they are. Fortunately for my Auntie Connie and I, we have a very supportive and loving family. But sometimes, in the case of my Auntie Connie and I, as well as so many other members of the LGBTQIA+ community of Guam, a supportive family isn't always enough. We need bills like this to be passed into law to help protect those within our community who for some are seen as abominations just for existing. We need the government's help to establish that all people, straight, queer, cis, trans, are deserving of respect, dignity, and love. This bill is a step in such a vital direction for the people in our community to live fully and authentically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christian Camacho. Who else would like to testify? Please identify yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Emmy Bowett. I'm a student at GCC. I graduated at JFK. And I want to tell a story that I think speaks to the heart of this bill. When I was 16 in high school, I was forcefully outed to my family, who was not very supportive at the time. For the next several months, my life became living hell. I was depressed. I became suicidal. I nearly attempted several times, but everything culminated on the night of my 17th birthday. I think that night I started to live again. I got invited to a surprise party by my friends, my closest friends, and I remember sitting there, them hauling out a cake with a simple message, "Happy birthday, Emmy." And that moment, I think back on my darkest days. And what saved me that night, I think, wasn't my name written on a cake. I think fundamentally what saved me that night was the recognition of my identity and the affirmation of my humanity. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, half a day. My name is Garrett Zopfi. I'm here today because I love some transgendered people very much, and they cannot be here today. I would like to highlight the administrative nature of this bill. This is a paper change. This doesn't require any money. It doesn't physically affect anyone. And the opposition to this topic seems to be rooted in fear and not in logic. I think that the legislative body here has a great and amazing opportunity to make a very meaningful change to a group of people that, from my outside perspective, contribute very much to the culture and sort of Hafa-Day spirit of this island. And that is all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please identify yourself.
Hafade Wahusi Rokin Shionko. Thank you for having me. I serve as the program director for Equality Guam. I also happen to be a weaver, artist, and child of Guahan, nephew to Trinity Hufana. Trinity was assigned male at birth. I grew up seeing her struggle with her immediate family. While she went off to the States to transition, she came back accepted by my great-grandmother. And as we all know, if the matriarch loves you, nothing else matters. Even though they are both ancestors now, their love and lessons echo throughout every space I find here at home. When we are born, we are recorded by numbers: height, weight, social security. These numbers are then compared to others, and they dictate whether or not someone is average, healthy, or predisposed to complications later down the road. One of the most defining categories is of a person's sex, F or M. Before a baby even cries, a life path and perspective is placed upon them. As they grow and learn in their body about themselves, some discover that what was determined for them based upon the appearance of their genitals at birth is not what aligns with their spirit and how they want to move through the world. Beyond changing their clothes, hair, and general appearance, our trans familia face significantly more challenges and interrogations to their integrity and personhood, limiting their access to fair hiring practices, housing, and other resources such as healthcare and access to community. It is also important to know that surgeries do not validate anyone's trans identity. We all want to live our truth. We all want to be seen, respected, and celebrated. I support this bill, 8637, so that we may not have numbers and letters on papers before we even know ourselves dictate how we are seen by our peers, how we contribute to our community, how we access stable housing, and most importantly, how we pursue our own happiness and liberty. Sana Maasi.
Sinamasi, is there anyone else who'd like to testify? All right, if not, we will open to questions or comments from the sponsors. Oh, before I do that, let me just say we have some written testimony, one by the Department of Public Health and Social Services Acting Director, Hafaday, Committee Chair, committee members, and members of the Guam Legislature. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. The Department of Public Health and Social Services is committed to implementing what is agreed upon and passed by the Guam Legislature in Bill 86-37 COR. The DPHSS Office of Vital Statistics is in charge of processing birth, marriage, death certificates, and other vital certificates. The ability to allow someone to change their sex or gender on their birth certificate is currently being done within a majority of the U.S. states, with the exception of places such as Montana, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this bill. We also have written testimony by Deja Chanel Flores in strong support of the bill. We have testimony from Lasya Casil, wholeheartedly expressing support for the bill. We had the written testimony from Dante Carino, thank you for putting that in writing, and from Tewit Erisbang, Situsmasi. And one more written testimony from Bella Olalia, supports the bill. All right, so all of these testimonies will be available in the committee report. They've also been provided to all the senators who are here today. All right, with that, we'll allow the sponsor to begin with questions or comments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, everyone, who shared their stories and their testimonies. As somebody who is not transgender, I sometimes myself struggle to put myself in your shoes because I've not lived the same struggles that you have. But that being said, as your senator, it's my job to be empathetic to people whose experiences I might not share. As somebody who's never had his gender identity questioned, it's no big deal to me what's on my paperwork because my paperwork has always reflected who I was. And I imagine if that situation were not so, that if my spirit of the person I was inside was not reflected on my paperwork, I imagine I would feel a different way about it. And so that's why when this was requested of me to introduce this bill, though I did not fully understand it, why it was so important, I did recognize that it was important to you. And so thank you for coming out and sharing your stories and really sharing with us and everyone that's listening why this is so important. For the people that are listening to this broadcast at home, I just wanted to clarify. We already allow the changing of sexual designation on birth certificates. If we're talking about the basic principle of can we change our sex designation? Yes, we can. That is already existing Guam law. We can already do that. That conversation has long sailed. But if we can already do it, why is this bill necessary? This bill is necessary because the only way you can officially change your documentation is with full sex reassignment surgery. What we are changing is the onerous requirement of this to change that documentation. The law currently already allows for the change. But currently, the law gates that option behind tens of thousands of dollars of expensive and sometimes unnecessary surgery. And if you could already do it, the question we need to ask ourselves is, do we want to make it harder or easier for our citizens to avail themselves of these options? To the naysayers of this bill, I just want to say that transgender people exist. Full stop. It's clear for us to see. Whether this bill passes or fails will not change the reality of that. Again, the only question before us is, do we want to make it easier or harder for these members of our community to live fulfilled and dignified lives? I've always believed that humans are not creatures of flesh, but creatures of spirit. And in the matters of the human spirit, we should always practice live and let live. This bill is an administrative change. It costs us no money. It hurts no one. And it could potentially save a life. And so, as the prime sponsor, I've always supported this bill, but after hearing your stories, I support it even more than I already did. And I want to advocate for this bill as far as we could possibly take it. Whether it be popular or unpopular, it is the right thing to do. We already allow the changing of the birth certificates. The only question is, do we want to make it cost tens of thousands of dollars to do so? And for me, that is an unjust situation. If you know who you are and you feel that spirit, you know what your internal life tells you is true, you shouldn't need to go through an invasive and expensive surgery to have that reflected on your documentation. But this is not a body run just by myself. This is a deliberative body, and we need 8 votes to get this through the legislature. But before that, we need to get this through the committee before we even get to the floor. So there's a lot of work to be done. But with your help, if you reach out to the senators on this committee, on the Committee on Rules, and then ultimately on the floor, we can push this bill across the line. But I can't do it alone, and your stories are an amazing, amazing North Star for us to follow, to know that this is the right thing for us to do. But I'm going to continue to ask for your help in convincing not just myself, but the other senators to support this measure. Because like I said, this is an administrative change, it costs no money, and it hurts no one. And most importantly, it could potentially save someone's life. And if we could save someone's life with paperwork, my God, let's do it. Let's do it. So with that, Madam Speaker, I yield the rest of my time, and I urge my colleagues to please support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you to all of you for your testimony. I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to point out for those who are listening what the bill's mechanics are. So public health vital statistics specified that they would do whatever is required in the bill. And the bill opens up a process in the court to petition for anyone over 18 to change the legal sex by, in the petition, stating just a few things. One is the cause for the change, for which the change is sought, the proposed legal sex, that you're not involved in a court action or proceeding other than the proceeding to change the petitioner's legal sex or legal name, or if so, a description of the court action or proceeding. This is similar to when you want to change your name for any purpose to prevent fraud from like bankrupt or banks or creditors who are looking for you. That the petitioner is not on the probation or parole, that the petitioner is given written notice of the petition to the petitioner's probation or parole officers. That the petitioner is not changing legal sex to avoid creditors or anyone else with a claim against the petitioner. That the change will not affect any right, title, or interest of anyone else. That the change in legal sex is not being done for any illegal, fraudulent, or otherwise wrongful purpose. The petition shall be accompanied by supporting documentation that is an affirmation from a physician licensed to practice medicine in Guam or an affidavit from a professional licensed to practice who is a doctoral level psychologist, PhD, or PSYD in clinical or counseling psychology, clinical social worker, master social worker, physician assistant, nurse practitioner, marriage and family therapist, or mental health counselor, which states under perjury that in keeping with contemporary expert standards regarding gender identity, the applicant's requested correction of sex designation or of male or female more accurately reflects the applicant's sex or gender identity. So that would be the petition put before the court. There would be a hearing, and it would be the court making a determination and an order to Vital Statistics at Department of Public Health to change an order that says to change the legal sex of the person within 30 days. So Public Health then would receive that and be required to do that. And the bill's very, very specific, as the sponsor said. It says no other requirements such as, but not limited to, surgical, hormonal, or other treatment or therapy shall be conditioned upon the approval of a legal sex designation change or subsequent name change application. And so the original and amended certificates will be kept by Vital Statistics, but if you ask for a copy of your birth certificate, you will be issued the amended version, which shall not indicate that it has been amended and shall be issued without additional cost. All right, so those to me are the mechanics of the bill, and for everyone who's listening. And I want to thank you again for your testimony, and I'll see if we get any other testimony from the courts or anywhere else as to this. Otherwise, yeah, this should be processed. Yes, Senator Quinata, any other questions or comments?
No questions, Madam Speaker. I definitely stand in full support of my fellow LGBT community. I'm very honored to be a co-sponsor. I know that a lot of our previous generation are unfortunately not with us because there's a lot of things that were in their way. And it is my hope that with the passage of such legislation that we don't have anyone else going to the grave with their dreams, hopes, or aspirations because of whatever they're going through right now. Certainly, this is a very personal matter. I know that a lot of you are in the community advocating for a lot of things beyond what you guys really want in life. You guys are being personal advocates. You guys are volunteering your time for the purposes of the next generation. And of course, it's my goal to ensure that the next generation doesn't inherit the same challenges as the previous. And I want to make sure everyone knows that I understand you guys' challenges because I am also a part of the LGBT community. And I'm very proud to be here today and I stand with you guys fully in support of this legislation. And it is also very imperative that our other members of our community step up and ensure that we do not go back, because we are not going backwards. We need to keep moving forward and keep pushing forward the issues that our community faces and make sure that we address them and we get things done. I just want to applaud the Equality Guam group for being here, and each and every one of you for stepping up, because each and every one of you guys have faced your own challenges. Small business owners stepping up to be present here as well. Freshmen, graduates from the high school community. It's very great to see the younger generation stepping up, military personnel stepping up, educator, artisans. There's a lot of us that have been playing vital roles in this community, and we've been silenced for so many years, and I want to make sure that those voices are no longer silent, and those voices do not go to the grave, not being recognized for who they are and what they want to be and where they want to go in life. That each and every one of you are very important, and even if your family doesn't see that your life is important, that we're here for you, and we will do whatever we can to support you throughout these challenges that you face. So again, I'm in full support of this legislation. I commend my colleague for asking me to be a co-sponsor as well. So I look forward to its passage, and I will continue to advocate for our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mrs. Masi, Senator. Any other closing remarks by the sponsor of the bill? Sponsors?
Just briefly, again, I want to thank all of you for coming out and sharing your stories. It's very courageous. It's very courageous, and I truly appreciate it. So you've definitely inspired me to keep fighting this fight, and we're going to try and go all the way with it. So thank you again.
Mrs. Masi, with that, this public hearing with the hearing on this bill is duly heard, bill number 86-37 COR. It's now about 5 p.m. and this public hearing is now adjourned. Mrs. Masi.